know what they're asking you. I have no notes. So thank you, everyone. First of all, thank you to my wonderful panelists. I could not be more happy to be here. And then we put basically everyone in the audience to work because we have a panel. Mariana gave you clear instructions. And you know boards, they're a little bit competitive, so we're going to try and get more people voting for this than ever. So the question was very simple. Are we expecting a recession, yes or no? So I hope everyone got the QR code. And we'll see what that result is. But demographics, debt, deglobalization, of course, all set to weigh on the pace of expansion. Artificial intelligence may yet prove to be significant productivity driver, but its game-changing potential remains unproven at the macro level. Many see the long-term outlook for global growth may be uninspiring, but that also means there are a lot of challenges actually and opportunities for investors and certainly for financial services. So we have the results of the poll. Do you think a global economic recession is likely in the next year? 60% of people in the audience say no, 40% say yes, so this is good. We have an optimistic bunch with us today. Thank you all for joining us. So we have 55 minutes, 11 panelists, so let's get straight to work. Jane, Fraser, let's start with you. When you look at financial services in general, how they will be transformed but also disrupted, if you look at AI and private markets, where will the biggest transformation come from?
So I think both are going to be transformational. And frankly, financial leaders, we're all going to have to win at both of them. Here's how we're thinking about it. On the AI front, it's probably the biggest shift, but it's in the longer term. We're just beginning to unleash the potential in AI at the moment. But it will be the rewiring of a lot of the global economy. It will be of financial services. And I think on AI, we can see it in three different areas. The one that's more immediate, which is the operational benefits we're getting. As we're replacing manual tasks, we're able to move data at greater speed. We're able to find anomalies faster. So the operational side, I think we're all beginning to see bottom line benefits. You have the revenue side. The one that's exciting immediately is personalization. People don't always say, oh, financial services, empathy. I think this is our opportunity to make some of the changes there. But it will change business models. It will change revenue models. I don't think we quite know how yet. And then you've got the risk dimension. And that's one where it's going to enable us to manage risk better, but it's also going to create new ones. And the bottom line for us all on AI is not whether it's going to happen, it's how thoughtfully and well do we execute it in our businesses. Private credit, that one is happening pretty quickly right now. We've got to decide, is this a tug of war or a team sport in private credit as banks? It's usually more fun to play in a team sport. But there's some areas where there's a zero-sum game. There's other areas where it's the benefit of both. Right now, it's not a huge part of the business model, but the inflection point is where private credit and AI meet. And I think that's what we're seeing in particular in the Kingdom. Is how is the AI infrastructure getting built out? How are we going to finance some of the models that are out there? What's happening to the power equation? And this is where it's not easy. This is not cooker-cutting finance. So banks play an important role in structuring, as I'm sure you'll hear from all of us, different deals we're working on. And private credit is an important part of the equation. The world needs both of us. So let's try and make this more of a team sport and as big a pie as possible. Let's not be complacent. There's going to be winners and losers.
I like the way you put it. Is it a team sport or not? Venkat, what's your take on private markets, but also AI? Because AI could accelerate really quickly.
As always, it's hard to follow Jane because she just said all the good things. But I do think on AI, just to add first, it represents obviously a great general purpose technology which can have a transformative effect, not only in how we run ourselves, but how we present ourselves to our customers with empathy, hopefully. Equally, when we think about our workforce and our colleagues, it is an opportunity and a risk. It's an opportunity to create a much more dynamic, enabled, empowered workforce and help it manage the transition because some jobs will transition. It's a risk because if you don't pay attention to it, then you can end up with divisions in the workforce and more disruption than you'd like. On private credit, at one level, this is something that banks have been doing all the time. And when we think about a definition, at least the definition I like to use, is that it's credit that does not come through banks and does not come through the public markets. But it comes through lots of recognized players, insurance companies, asset managers directly, including what we call the private credit funds. And I think it should be a team sport. I think there are some things banks will not find it appropriate to do under their capitalization rules. Others should do it because the world needs the credit. And banks should work with them, either by financing them or even working jointly directly. But that's the best way to get credit into the economy.
Bill Winters, where does this balance of financing power actually lie between traditional and private credit?
I don't think it's a balance. I mean, I'll pick up where Venkat left off, which is that there's demand for credit and there's supply of credit, and different people are in a different position to provide different types of instruments. So banks are heavily guided by our regulation. It's a fact. And if I were a regulator, which I've dabbled on that side of the table from time to time, I would also be concerned about banks that are leveraged 8 to 10 times, that have a systemic role in many countries. And I'd also want them to operate with a lower tolerance for solvency risk than a non-bank. No. But how are things working out? The non-banks are much less leveraged than banks. They're providing credit, buying assets in a safe and sound form that presents, as far as I can see, much lower systemic risk than banks. That's good. That's good for the economy. But we need each other because they don't have tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people around the world scouring the market for good credit opportunities and providing the rest of the banking services that we all on this panel do one way or other, where we can understand that customer, that credit, and provide a broader range of needs. I mean, they don't want to build that infrastructure. They don't want to take deposits. So, I mean, it's perfectly complementary. It's not to me about balance.
Chairman Mika, you also see new entrants because of fintech. So how do traditional banks actually deal with the new entrants? How does that change the landscape?
Okay, thank you, Francine. Well, let me take one step back to think about actually who we are. It was already 30 years ago when Bill Gates said, banking is necessary, banks are not. And since then, financial innovations have brought various new players to the market. Likewise, open fund, private equity, private credit, fintech players, and so forth. And indeed, now NBFI accounts for more than half of our global financial assets. So some may argue that the traditional banks are becoming less relevant. Is it true? Let me be a bit provocative by arguing against it. One, our access point to a financial service by the individual. The number of banking accounts held by 15 years above and has been increased from 3 billion accounts in 2014 to now 5 billion accounts. And the global account ownership ratio has also increased from the 50% to now 80% over the past 30 years. Two, banks have been indeed providing financing to fintechs and the non-bank sectors. For example, in the United States, the bank lending to a non-bank sector has doubled over the past 5 years. Finally, banks are even distributing the products generated by those non-banking sectors as well. So that all means the banks remain an indispensable intermediary. And with that, however, we happen to be complacent, and what we need to be conscious of and what we need to be prudent is, as a responsible intermediary, upon the intermediation, we have to be careful about what we are going to intermediate in order to preserve the overall safety and soundness of the World Bank systems.
Mr. AlSadhan, how do you expect actually Saudi banks, but also broader Middle Eastern banks to change because of the disruption, which could be new entrants, which could be private markets, so what you're selling, and AI?
Francis, we are changing already. So when we talk about fintech or disruption or digital banks, I always respond by saying we are a fintech. We are a large fintech. We are a digital bank. So the advancement of the innovative solution that the banking sector in Saudi in specific, but at large at the Middle East, I think it comes in a very strong competitive advantage. and we are moving toward full automation. It is also time to unlock the wealth of data that the banking sector sits on and utilizing the AI to capture all the benefit that we see coming from the innovation agenda. Today, I'll be surprised if there is any financial institution doesn't take AI in the heart of their strategy, and that's embedded in every division in the banking sector, the financial institutions. So today, the winning strategies, the winning financial institutions, the one that embed and capture the best application of AI in terms of operational efficiency, risk mitigation, but also in the future, in the near future, the uplift on the revenue side.
Thank you so much. Mr. Takashima, how do you see it evolving in your country?
All right, in Japan. Well, first of all, thank you, Francie. And it's great to be back to the panel, and all good friends of mine, and also it's an honor to be a part of you. And first of all, in Japan, similar changes taking place. And one thing I have to tell you is both for the development of the private asset industry as well as fintechs, we are a little bit behind. But the tendency or direction of all the changes should be the same as everybody just talked about it. But if I take a look at the situation here, I have to start to emphasize that change is good. Change is always a source of the transformation. And there is a track record, a history of financial industries to take chance of the changes, to transform ourselves. But of course, this time of the change is significant, but still I think there should be a lot of chances. I take that side of the coin. That is, we have to, what we have, the significant customer base, both for the corporate, consumers, communities, financial institutions, and the firms. I think that meaning is significant. To take advantage of those existing customer base, perhaps we should work together with private asset players and the fintech players, working together as a partner to deliver the better services. If we go through the direction, I think we see the more opportunity than the risks.
Jenny Johnson, as Franklin Templeton pushes further into, of course, private markets, but also private credit, what do you look out for?
Well, so just in the evolution of private markets, first of all, and Bill, you said it, right? Let's face it, it's not like banks just decided they didn't want to keep lending. The capital requirements changed. They couldn't lend at the same amount, and supply and demand, there became an opportunity which was filled by the market. And so that's where the creation of private credit, why it's evolved to be so big, and I don't think that reverses. So at Franklin Templeton, our job is to provide the greatest breadth of capabilities to our clients, whatever their needs are, and whether it's traditional fixed income or private credit, that's part of it, whether it's equities or private equity or venture, whatever. So all of those things have to be part of it. Where I think it's evolving, and the technology, I think, of tokenization is going to help in this, is that we need to figure out how to package this so that it is fairly accessible to all people. Today, it's really been just institutions that have benefited from private markets. And in private credit, there's an argument that it ranges about 150 to 250 basis points more in returns than a traditional credit that is liquid, right? But it's illiquid. But that's meaningful if it's in your retirement plan. And so I think what we're starting to see, and what Franklin Templeton's very focused on, is how do we package these? And in some cases, it's hybrid with traditional and private assets in there, appropriate products to be suitable to whatever a particular client's liquidity capabilities are or needs.
Thank you, Jenny. Ronald Hanley, what do private markets actually mean for asset managers?
Well, I think that as the entire panel has talked about, the role of private credit is to fill a need that the banks could no longer provide at the same level. What we saw in 2008 was a great concentration of risk on balance sheet. The regulators didn't want that. And private credit is exactly the opposite. It's the distribution of risk. And this is where asset managers come in. They can provide that supplement to the marketplace And I think what we've learned over the past several years, to the point about it being a team sport, is that banks have an incredibly important role to play in origination, can probably originate more credit than they can actually underwrite and keep on balance sheet. And this is where this partnership can come into a place. But it's also the point that Jenny just made. Until recently, the access of the retail or even the affluent investor to private credit has been limited. There's new structures that make that, new regulation that enable that. And frankly, there's had to be an enormous upgrade to the operations to be able to do this. Now, there's still issues with this in terms of how we think about liquidity and the liquidity mismatch. So I think this is where regulators and the market need to come together and really think about, do we want daily liquidity or do we want daily valuation? Those are two very different things. And we should be thinking about what are the real liquidity needs of the investors here. As Jenny just pointed out, retirement investors don't need to be getting in and out every day. And if you can have a structure in place that doesn't have that kind of liquidity need, then you can actually deliver the benefits of private credit to the retail investors.
Tony Elumelu, how do you see this developing actually in Africa? Again, is it private markets or is it just challenger banks that means that you need to look at transforming your institution?
I think the bank I chair on the continent operates in over 20 countries and has over 50 million customers. So we have a fairly good understanding of the financial landscape on the continent. First is that financial inclusion is a bit poor on the continent. Secondly, we have a great deal of informal sector on the continent. So the headache we have in Africa is slightly different. What we want to do is to use both methods, traditional, private markets, and digital technology to bring the market and grow a deeper market on the continent, because access to capital is difficult, and two, we need so much private global capital on the continent to help catalyze infrastructure development. We talk about AI here, but to fire AI on the continent, you need to improve massively access to electricity, which is a challenge on the continent. So the development of the private market on the continent has been there for a bit, but what we want to do about galvanizing resources, and this is a great opportunity to encourage everyone here, fund managers and allocators of capital. There's so much opportunity in Africa to invest in, but capital deepening on the continent is required. I would say that it's a combination therapy. We need regulators to have the right mindset. We need private global capital to find investable opportunity on the continent. We need traditional institutions, digital institutions, fintechs, all of us working together to harness. The challenge is big. We have resources, but ability to harness the resources and make the capital in Africa work for African development is, to me, a critical point.
Thank you. Sushan, how do you see, again, this changing actually the landscape of your institution, but also do you feel comfortable with a lot of private money going into private assets?
Well, Francine, banks intermediate money. We take deposits, we either lend it out, we effect payments, or we distribute it, right? We distribute it to public markets, to stocks, to bonds, to funds and ETFs, or we now get involved in digital assets. So there's different layers of assets that we intermediate. But what form factor? It could be physical, it could be digital, it could be on the blockchain. But the point is, underlying all this is a strong element of trust. Who's going to put their money with you if they don't trust you? And if they don't trust you and you are very digital, then 3 clicks and your money's out. So as banks, our regulated entities, we've got high AML compliance regulations, we've got liquidity coverage ratios, capital ratios, etc. Sometimes there is regulatory arbitrage between us and the fintechs, but it behoves us, therefore, to do what Bill Gates said, which is, stay relevant, which means whilst we have their trust, we have to improve on our form factor. We've got to be as good as the fintechs in delivering a great digital UX, but underpinning all that is don't mess up on the trust, right? Stay trusted, stay safe, so that they're going to keep their money with you long term. So all in on digitalization, all in on AI, but let's not forget the basics.
Yeah, and actually remembering the basics goes back, Tshabalala, to liquidity. So how do you see that, changing on how ordinary, for example, investors can get their money out quickly if needed in some of the newer markets?
So Francine, first of all, throughout the continent, people follow the basics of banking, just as everybody has said. But let me tell you two little stories that will pull together the themes. First of all, there's a company called Optasia. It was started by a Nigerian Lebanese man who's now based in Dubai. The company has 121 million users. It operates in 38 African countries, in Southeast Asia, as well as in Latin America. They use 5,000 points of data, and they use those 5,000 points of data per user using AI to determine the score, the credit score of that individual. That business is going to go to be listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, and one of our competitors, to take Jane's point, is going to buy 20% of that business. We have taken that business from cradle in 2013 to its listing. It's using infrastructure, it's using financial services, it's using our intermediation skills, and each player is playing the appropriate role in the transaction. The second story, and I'll stop there, relates to a company called Barlow World, which is owned currently by people on the stock exchange. The Zahid Group, out of this country, is in a 49% partnership with a local entity to buy out the company and take it private. Again, the GCC states investing on the African continent, each player playing their appropriate role, providing liquidity to the financial system and using AI, using the infrastructure and using the capability of financial institutions. The proposition, Francine, is that Africa is open for business.
Thank you so much. Venkat, you're a former chief risk officer, so you're perfect to talk about AI. We keep on hearing that actually AI could vastly reshape the way that banks, for example, take credit decisions. Like, how do you see AI enabling the bank to do better whilst keeping everyone safe?
Yeah. I'll never live this down. I think the mechanics of underwriting credit and how quickly you can do it, how much information you absorb, how you keep it up to date, at the first blush, all of that can be transformed by AI. We're doing it. Then, I think there's a set of decisions you could make in credit which are relatively automatable, generally small, generally alike. So, a mortgage of a certain type, a loan of a certain type, credit card decisions. Then there are the very large decisions which require the more fundamental issues of client selection, understanding business models, underwriting the way a company has independent financial controls, strong financial controls. I think that's going to be human for a while yet.
And yes.
No, I agree with Venk in terms of banking sector being regulated, highly regulated, with many rule-based processes that can be totally automated and done by robotics or by AI. But human touch is really important, and important in certain decisions that definitely require the intervention. And looking at the AI, I think we need to be very careful because it looks very tempting when you look at the application in the financial sector of how much it can bring from an efficiency or uplift in the revenue. But I think you need to be careful in applying that, in ensuring that risk is always mitigated, ensuring also that your human capital is being elevated to be able to deal with what's happening on the AI. Technology and the human capital needs to be reskilled and elevated to handle any situation when it goes south, potentially.
I guess it has to go together. Jane, you were talking about AI, and I think that the number is incredible. You said that Citigroup, AI is saving your coders 100,000 hours of work per week by automating code reviews.
Yeah.
So what happens after that? Can you do more of that?
Yes. I think there's a number of different pieces where AI is really starting to make bottom line impact finally. So it's not just the shiny objects. I think I heard the cheer around our firm globally when we told everybody that they would be able to do the performance reviews. The AI tool we have will do the first draft of them. So there are ways to make it popular with your organization by eliminating some of the greatly dreaded annual processes you have. Agentic's the one that I'm seeing the big change, because I think the first wave of AI has really been this automation of tasks that have been heavily manual or error-prone. Where you start seeing a game change is agentic. So we work with cognition. Coding that had been taking our top teams, PhDs, a week and a half to do is being done in 3 minutes. And it's extraordinary, the quality. And I think the other change we see is, it's like washing dishes. When you wash dishes by hand, it's one process. The dishwasher results in a clean plate, but the way it washes the dish is completely different. And that's the bit that is difficult right now, is how do we get our teams to look at a process end to end and completely reimagine how they've done it manually in the past to now, how do you think about a completely different technology being applied to it? And that's why I think we're at the beginning of what this means.
Bill, you're also a veteran of the last financial crisis. And so when you look at some of the things that went wrong last time, I mean, how do you manage AI in a way that we don't replicate some of those mistakes?
No, I think we talk a lot about AI. It's central, and I think the comments of Jane, Tareq, and others are spot on. But there's two massive technology changes that are going on at the same time right now, and that will transform finance in a very fundamental way. The first is AI, and the second is the digitization of money. Yeah. The digitization of money, and this isn't, and we're not talking about cryptocurrencies, we're not talking about stable coins, we're talking about everything that we do being digitized, everything in our lives being digitized. That calls for an entirely new financial infrastructure, entirely new. And some of that will be provided to us by third parties, and they'll charge a lot for it, as they always do. And some of that will be built ourselves, and some of that we'll build amongst ourselves. But the digitization of money, which will leverage AI tools, and AI will leverage this digitization, is a fundamental change in finance. And I've been doing banking for 42 years, and there's been two paradigm shifts in my 42 years. The first was the derivatization of all financial assets. That led to the financial crisis. I can tell you, when I was at my old place, JP Morgan, we did a lot of the early work in that area. It was great. JP Morgan is still doing really well, I think, as far as I can tell. And it kind of survived the financial crisis because they took this super powerful tool, and we took that super powerful tool, Chief Risk Officer, right? Here we are, at JP Morgan. They took that super powerful tool and used it prudently. Other people took that super powerful tool and used it either unwisely or imprudently, and for the most part, aren't there. And as we get into this new age of the digitization of money with AI, powerful tool will be used hugely constructively by most people, will be abused by some, and we've got to keep an eye out, and will be used incompetently by others, and we have to keep an eye out.
Yeah. That's a word of warning. Sushan, how do you see this developing?
I think the human aspect's important. First of all, I think we all learn best by doing. And we're all going into this unknown space together, which means creating that sort of intrapreneur culture where, whether it's horizontal use cases of AI or vertical specialized use cases or agentic or generative or classic AI, it's let 1,000 flowers bloom, but put guardrails in and let's learn from everyone else's mistakes. But honestly, looking at the human aspect, it's how do you then move people who are so used to doing a certain role, right? They were always in operations or call center jobs or writing credit memos, doing pitch books, your young analysts. How do you move all these people, and they're young, how do you move them to the next job? And often I think this is taking one step back to take 2 steps forward. It's all about attitude, right? It's not even about age, it's about attitude. And it's really, I think as CEOs, it behoves us all to make sure that our teams are ready to take this step back, unlearn, relearn, and start from scratch, right? And learn a new skill. But assure them that, look, you've got all these tools to help you in your new skill. If you didn't know how to be an RM, now you've got tools to help. If you couldn't do, credit synthesis or whatever, or risk analysis, now you've got all these tools to help you. And so it's really the human and machine interaction and making it okay to fail and making those cultural mindset shifts. That's important.
Jenny, I know this is something that you also think about, but also then to each of you, how do you think your institution will change in the next 5 to 10 years, given all of this?
Well, I always say that here's the good news. Since my grandfather started Franklin Templeton in 1947, the mission of helping clients achieve their personal financial goals has not changed. So that's the good news. The better news is actually the tools to do it and customize it are even better. So we can do a better job at that. And so, I look at it right now, and I 2 comments. On what Sushan said about the attitude, I jokingly say that, my daughters are a singer, an actress, and a documentary filmmaker, so that when my son became a computer programmer, I was like, oh, thank goodness somebody's going to have a job. But the reality is, that's a lousy job in the sense that it's not going to be long. Today you need to program and use GitHub, and it'll help. But there are apps like Replit where you just tell it what to do and it programs in front of you. Yeah. And so back to that attitude and creativity, that's going to be incredibly important in the skill set. The curious mind, the willingness to use tools. And by the way, the younger generation are doing it every day naturally. We have to think about doing it. Yeah. And so ensuring that our organizations have younger people coming in. And then I just want to point out, Bill's comment on blockchain. Look, the entire rails of the financial system are going to be disrupted by blockchain. It is just, we personally have a tokenized money market fund that's the only one that's actually natively on the public blockchain. It calculates the yield every second. If you own it, you're a hedge fund, and you own it for 4 hours, 32 minutes, and 22 seconds, you're going to get that yield. You can't do that with a traditional money market fund. And what was surprising to us is how dramatically cheaper it is to operate this, such that when we think about financial inclusion, the fact that it's cheaper to do, we're going to be able to more broadly distribute it. And so I think it's going to change a lot of how counterparties work, but it's also going to drive down the cost, and it's going to generate a lot of innovation. And the smart contract nature that is involved in tokenization, you add that with AI, and it's going to be very, very powerful when applied appropriately.
Yeah. And we're putting your fund on our digital exchange.
Yeah. What's that?
We're putting your fund on our digital.
Yes, you are.
Okay, we're doing business here on the board as well. Tony.
I want to bring a practical perspective to this conversation. Sitting at this table and listening to all my colleagues here, AI is like a constant. It's like commoditized in some markets. But there are some markets like the African market. This is starting, but the rate of adoption is not great. And even the infrastructure to make AI work on the continent is lacking. And so as I sit here and listen to everyone here, I'm asking myself, what catalytic thing, one thing that we can all here do to help improve the AI penetration on the African continent? Because AI is the way to go. It's all about productivity, efficiency. It's about people, their careers, etc. It's about growing, achieving common good, and in fact, prosperity for everyone. AI is key. It's key, the way to go. So I think in our credit rooms, in our board rooms, as we make decisions about funding, capital allocation in particular, about asset investments, we should please encourage and support the infrastructure development in Africa. Because it's so critical. If you look at power, for instance, I talk about this always. Access to electricity is so poor on the continent. Over 600 million people don't have access to electricity. And we're talking of AI, data, etc. You need so much power to fire this. But something can be done and should be done. And AI and the FII is about prosperity. And prosperity is when almost everyone is carried along at the same level, at the same page. So let's see in our respective boardrooms any investment decision we can make, any credit decision we can make. I know my friend does a bit of that, and she does too, to support the infrastructure, AI infrastructure development in Africa.
Could I?
Yep.
If I may just pick up on Tony's point. So just to take it a step further, the African continent has got geothermal in East Africa. It's got sun, it's got wind, it's got copper in the copper belt, it's got manganese, it's got the platinum metals, it's got coal, it's got gas, it's got all the minerals that the world needs for its transition. And so, Jane, how about setting up data centers in East Africa? The engineering is easy. You just dig a hole into the Rift Valley and the power pops out, and the copper is just up the road in the copper belt. However, as Tony says, Africa needs $100 billion per annum of infrastructure, but only raises about half of that. Yeah. And what is needed is a combination of banking, multilateral money, and private credit. For that purpose, to unleash the banking and the private money, we need some of the Basel regulations to be changed. Now, some people have insisted on putting the pen down. We're asking them to pick it up to reduce the risk weights associated with infrastructure projects in Africa. Just some lobbying there, Francine.
Completely echoing Sim's comments about infrastructure, but I want to come back to the AI and digital assets in Africa. You have outstanding AI applications in your bank. Yeah. You have outstanding AI applications in your bank. We have a few. Jane has a few. The talent in Africa is as capable as any talent in the world. You're not going to build the large language models.
It's more productive and it's cheaper as well.
Sometimes cheaper. But the no, I'm just saying that I think this is the greatest opportunity in Africa in our lifetime for Africa to blossom, and it's because you absolutely need the infrastructure. But the creativity of certainly the people we see and where we operate across the continent, as you know, the capabilities that we see, the entrepreneurial spirit to overcome some of the obstacles, including the infrastructure obstacles, is just outstanding. So
And if I can jump in, and I think this is where Saudi is playing such a constructive role, and we've seen it in recent FIIs as well, that the US and China have been lacking in different ways in supporting the infrastructure. I think the attention, the care that is coming from this part of the world in looking thoughtfully about how do we look at the right structures, what are the different types of infrastructure plays that can be made, look at what Aqua is doing in water in Africa. Like, they're on a mission. They're looking long term, they've got a vision around it, they're driving this forward. I don't want to underplay. We've talked about there's no transition without transmission. Water's important, the food's important. Saudi is playing a really, really important role, and many of the global champions that are emerging out of PIF and building out the ecosystems are also going to be critical partners. And I think we all see that and acknowledge that.
Thank you, Jane. Ron, Tony was talking about the pace of adoption of AI. This was more related to infrastructure, but in general, how are we overestimating or underestimating actually how financial services will change because of AI and disruption?
Yeah, I think this is evolving like many new technologies. All the attention is being paid on the actual hardware itself, and certainly that's where all the investment has gone. But I have to believe that all the value is going to come out of the applications. And I think the challenge for us here, most of us are running very large institutions, is how do we actually capture that value? There's about 150 years of management science that's being thrown out the window. And the challenge for management, particularly for the middle manager here, is quite high. Because I could believe the 100,000 hours, but how do you capture those? What do you do with 100,000 new hours? Do you just reduce your staff? Do you say, no, I actually want my staff to do more? So the real science here, in my mind, is thinking through, for a particular application, is there high, what we call high AI exposure, meaning there's lots that AI can do, some of these data-intensive, large language-intensive kinds of things. And the second thing is, what's the AI-human interface here? And so for things where the interface is low, like reconciliations, we do a lot of those. We do a gazillion of them a day, right? There's a big AI opportunity. There's certain things, though, where there's the AI exposure is high, but also the human intervention is high. So you think about investment research. You think about all the things that when we started our career, whether it was at a consulting firm or an investment bank, all the stuff we did at 4 o'clock in the morning, that probably can be done by somebody else. But then there's the things where you have to make a judgment on this, where actually AI is not going to be helpful. Some of the things you talked about, the creative side, but strategic planning, negotiation, just creativity, how we think about all that. That's what we're asking our middle managers to do now in terms of figuring that out, and how do we actually equip them to do that and empower them to do that.
That's a really good point. Mr. Takashima, how do you prioritize or enable your staff actually to prioritize what they need to do for transformation?
Yes, I think, yes, I agree, AI is a significant, enabler at the same time, disruptor for the existing services of financial institutions. But at the same time, I have to emphasize that it is customers, it is a society, it is a community who choose the services from all the service offering from the financial institutions or big tech or fintech players. That means I think it is coming back to the Sushan's comment. I agree with you. Human touch is very important as far as it is related to the existing customers who likes to continue the banking with some specific institutions, even though the banks is trying to implement new services based on, for example, AI-driven, automated services or otherwise. But some customers don't take it. Particularly, the wealthy individuals or the corporations who have very complicated needs. In those circumstances, I think it is important to develop the AI, the supported human, the touches of approach and the proposal and dealing with the customers at the same time. Of course, we have to also develop automated, AI-driven services. Sometimes, even in Japan, we are developing those automated services, for example, 24 hours, 7 days a week, AI chat type of services, in addition to the device, human-based advice, even for the wealthy individuals. I think those type of things, there is still, we could work around to take advantage of the existing human resources.
Thank you. Chairman Miike, how do you see also, again, when we look at new entrants, given all of this, how do you prioritize? Bring it home. Yeah, you can bring it all together in 30 seconds.
Thank you. Very kind of you. But having heard all of the arguments, yes, AI is certainly a transformational innovations which we have to live up with. And we discussed so much about opportunities and some challenges as well. And I think that in my view, the biggest challenge is adaptation. Do we all have adapted every evolving technologies and innovation in the past? But this time around, speed of technological evolutions is unprecedented. Whether capacity for human beings could adapt to that speed of evolution is one challenge. And we know, as the CEOs and the chairman, we have to reskill, we have to retrain, we foster those talents within our organization. Yes, we do. The challenge would be then whether our customers could adapt to that speed of a technology evolution. We have to be responsible to engage our clients, our community where we serve, to be on exactly on this evolutions of a technology. That is what we have to do as a responsible financial institution. Thank you.
I have a comment on the human capital side. I think we are blessed in this country, among many things, of our human capital. We're a very young population, so we're dealing with young customers, and we have also a very young employees. The digital adoption is very high, which really enables the transformation, any technological transformation, to be much easier in our country. And I love it when I speak to young employees in the organization, and they kept asking us, what is the bank strategy on AI? What are we doing? What's next? When are you going to train us on AI? This is really a blessing that we've seen in this country, and I think this will enable us really to leapfrog when it comes to our innovation agenda in the country as well.
So I think I have 8 minutes left, and the FII were quite clever in having this idea of a lock and a key. I don't know if you've noticed, this is actually a key where, the platform. So this is the top of the key, and then it goes down like that. So let's just go around, in clockwise order, in what you are most optimistic about. So the key to unlock success for the next 12 months.
I think I did allude to it. I think we have the human capital power that will enable and make the transformation from an innovation point of view much easier. We have also an excellent ecosystem when it comes to innovation. So today, the public sector and the private sector partnership on innovation, it's at the highest compared to, I would say, other countries. And that's really will enable the success in our innovation transformation.
Tony?
For me, it's back to the same chorus. To some, it's about AI adoption. To others, it's about AI accessibility. We should, as a global community, play our own role in helping to create AI access so that all of us grow simultaneously.
Is that happening?
It's not happening. That's what I'm saying. That's accessibility. But for it to happen in some regions, access, infrastructure is so critical. The capital for that infrastructure is not available. We're sitting at this table, we have people who allocate global assets. I'm saying our capital. Let's see how much of that we can concretize or commit to deploying in helping to create the AI infrastructure in Africa that will help us begin to talk about accessibility, then adoption.
Jane, what are you most optimistic about?
So we're at this inflection point that we're talking about that's probably the biggest change in technology in our lifetimes. And at the same time, there's a bit of a feeling that the world, there may be another shoe to drop here from macro or geopolitical. We don't know where it will come. What makes me optimistic is how resilient and adaptable companies have been, consumers have been, humans have been over the last 5 to 6 years. There's been a heck of a lot thrown at everybody. And look at where the world is. So what gives me optimism is that we keep surprising ourselves. Let's keep going.
Very true. Jenny?
I'd say every time there's new technology, there's always this prediction of the demise of jobs, and we're going to have all this unemployed people. The internet had it. You look in history, it happens over and over. And I'm optimistic about humanity because we always find more things to do. And when you have new technology right now in companies that are growing in a growing economy, which I'm optimistic about, to Ron's point about what do you do with those 100,000 hours, you have a bunch of tech projects that you can't do, and now you'll be able to do as long as you're growing.
Yeah.
Well,
Chairman Mike?
innovation is always come up with to resolve the social challenges and the issues. So this time around, for example, Japan is suffering from an aging and declining population. AI could be used effectively to provide that solution as well. So I hope that evolving technology will be used to resolve the many social issues we are confronting these days.
I'm optimistic because I think this technology will lead to a real revolution in terms of the client and customer experience. And I think those that apply it well can truly distinguish themselves from others. And the willingness of customers to actually tolerate bad service will go to zero because they can see what those that are applying it well are able to do.
So, question in the next 12 months, you said, right?
Yeah,
So-
then I'll ask you if anyone's
Yes.
expecting a recession, but for the moment, we're focused on the optimistic thing.
I'm optimistic about the Japanese equity market for the next 12 months.
Sitting here in Saudi Arabia, it's hard not to be positive about the momentum and the structural growth that you see around you. So, and as an Asian bank, I have to tie it back to Asia somehow. So I'm optimistic about the trade flows between Asia and the GCC. A lot to be done there.
Yeah. Big week for that.
Like Sushan, we see $59 billion from the UAE, 26 from Saudi, and about 9 from Qatar. We think there's more to come, being invested in private equity and in private transactions. And because Africa is getting healthier, wealthier, and more productive, and is in need of this greater infrastructure I was referring to, there are huge opportunities for anybody who's either facing retail customers or wholesale customers. We are open for business.
Look, I think there's tremendous opportunity from technology. I think we need to be bold, but we need to be responsible. bold in adopting it, responsible not just to the bottom line, but to all the stakeholders in society, including, of course, our own employees.
Bill?
I'll be a bit more macro. I'm extremely optimistic about the shift in the center of intellectual gravity from stability to growth. After the financial crisis, I think we over-indexed stability, we under-indexed growth. That's changing. We can't forget about the stability. That's hugely liberating for billions of people around the world. And the second thing to note about optimism is I think we're realizing the value of peace. And while we obsess quite correctly on the remaining incidents of war, we're in a very peaceful world right now, actually, by any historical standard. And I hope that the value of peace becomes even more clear. I think it will, and it makes me optimistic.
40% of the audience thinks that we're going to see a recession this year.
I disagree. I don't see a recession.
Does anybody agree, actually, with headwinds? No, we have a very optimistic board. This is like happy days. Venkat, any worries out there in terms of recession or a significant slowdown?
I mean, there are always worries at different points, but not of a recession, no.
AI valuations? Give me something. Do you
I
worry,
mean,
Jane?
There's going to be, I think, every statement of the blindingly obvious, there are going to be winners and losers in the AI. When we look at the amount of money that's going in, not all of that is going to be deployed effectively. But there is a huge need, like the infrastructure need, the data need. I don't think anyone's going to say it's been overbuilt, but not everyone will be a winner.
If you just want, I mean, look, 2026 is not going to be a problem. U.S. debt is going to be a problem someday. It's not a problem until it's a problem. So I don't see any problems in 26.
What a wonderful panel. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jane,
Thank you very much.
take a lot